Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley. It's been a while, so I forgot why I put this book in my reading list, but if I'm not mistaken, Shane Top from Smith recommended this book somewhere. But I really wish I decided to not take it because while it is actually quite an interesting story, the execution is some of the worst I read this year. The main character is a nameless character that I will just call Adela to make making the video easier for myself. She is a second generation immigrant from Cambodia, and like most countries from the global south, it is a country that was and is still a victim of Western imperialism. But Adela is white enough that she can basically white pass convincingly in UK at least until someone asks her where she came from and she then had to convince them that she is indeed a Cambodian, then the person will awkwardly walk back on some of the racist comments around her. She has been stagnant at her job in the language department of Ministry of Defense, so when there was an application that paid more than what she currently have, she applied for it despite the job at the government was so secretive that even in her sixth interview, she still has no idea what she is getting into. It was not until she got the job and had to sign a ton of papers, more than she signed on the Ministry of Defense, that she finally knows where she works. It's in the title of the book, Ministry of Time. So the Brits managed to create a time machine for quite a while actually, but since they were afraid that they might create a butterfly effect that might cause untold consequences to their present, no one has used them so far. That is until someone came up with an idea that they can test it to get people right before their death. Since historically they will still be known as dead, it should be fine. Now to take care of these people that they basically kidnap using a time machine, they want to treat them like refugees. That's where Attila came in. She will act as handler for these people out of their time and reintroduce them to the present. So far, they have taken 12 people who all was at a state of dying when they were picked up. 7 of them has actually died and only 5 people remain. Another expat or refugee that she will have to handle is Graham Gore, an English Royal Navy officer, a crew on Erebus, a ship that was one of the first Arctic explorers recorded to try to get through the Northwest Passage in Arctic and was lost there. When he first got taken, he became violent and shoot at his surroundings until someone had to shoot back and sedate him. But he has calmed down since and people started explaining centuries of what has happened since when he died, which is 1845 to now. British since then has gone through the First and Second World War, and during those times, their economy that is based on the fairless economy has only gotten worse and worse with many banking crises. But they have a period of prosperity where the lower and middle class can raise their material economic status because they adopted the Keynesian economy. But because of the oil crisis, the ultra-rich with the help of Margaret Thatcher foolishly changed it to an even worse neoliberal economy politic that emphasized free market, and that caused the gap between the working class wage and the elites to only grow further apart, causing worsening inequality. And ever since then, it has only gotten worse for the Brit because of the think tank group, which is just political lobbying that kept on donating to the politician to keep neoliberal going, eventually leading the APC of austerity, Brexit, and COVID. Graham bypassed all of that and has now arrived at the present. A guy from the past when colonialism was not just exclusively done by Israel since everyone else has moved to neocolonialism. He even at first was reluctant to stay with Adela because he is from 1800 before any waves of feminism. Most of the time we just see how he acts like a stereotypical person who never saw any technology and suddenly see them everywhere. Vacuum cleaner, washing machine, people flying using planes, an app owned by a warmonger Batman used to listen to almost all music ever made. The story progresses mostly with Adela and Graham getting closer to each other as Graham learns more about the world, about its progresses and digresses, which includes, of course, climate change since the weather in European countries in the 1800s is vastly different to today. There is also an ongoing mystery boiling up in the background on why the project was being done because it doesn't feel like there is any goal or benefit that come from doing the project, only more costs, and the British government is not the kind of doing good for the sake of doing good type of organization. One of the character Quentin also seemed to know more, but each time he was about to say something that seemed crucial, there's always some plot convenience that made him unable to finish whatever he wanted to say to Adela. At some point of the story, he even goes missing. While the concept of the story is really good, almost everything with the execution is bad, it's really bad. For one, the dialogue is so ass that everything is held back so much as a result of how bad the dialogue is. A lot of them just feel stiff and clunky like pieces of puzzle that doesn't belong being stick together with force to complete the puzzle. There is so much well, oh, and those random fillers. And because the dialogue feels unnatural, the character is not building their chemistry properly at all, since whenever they talk, you feel like you're hearing a fork clawing its way through one side of the plate to the other. And this is despite the expat came from different era that made most of them talk with different kind of English. But because everyone talks similarly with a kind of Marvel quirkiness to them, it is still so hard to differentiate them from one another. Most of the characters build some kind of friendship and some even enmity or at least annoyance, but everyone blends into each other that none of the relationship feel real. It's hard to tell the difference between love and hate between the characters, which makes it hard to follow what is supposed to be a budding romance between Attila and Graham Gore. But the story kept going in some of the most boring direction possible. As I mentioned, the expats are people from when colonialism was more normalized, coming to an era where colonialism has transformed into neo-colonialism, where the proxy wars are more often done, and invasion was run only after so much justification was done before they then name it a war. There is some mention of Vietnam, Khmer Rouge, Auschwitz, and 9/11, but they're mentioned like there's something that happens in a vacuum, and nothing in history happened just suddenly. Just like none of invention is this eureka moment where a person suddenly made something out of nowhere without any of the many previous inventions, history and tragedy also did not happen out of nowhere. Nazi became the political leader of Germany and the plane hitting the Twin Tower did not just one day suddenly. The story can also even be a conversation in the economy that has also been run to the ground because of capitalism, with the level gap between income and rising prices has become so absurd that most people, even middle class, need to get into debt just to afford buying a small house barely fit for two. But because the author is writing about historical people with what seems to be a lack of historical knowledge, what we got instead is one of the expats got into cooking, one of the expats got into movies, one of the expats started hunting squirrel, another one joined Tinder after they were given more freedom albeit still being monitored very closely. It's very boring daily life with badly written dialogue. It created this tone difference between the life that these time travel are living in comparison to the serious situation of the story. The missing member of the Ministry of Time, Quentin, actually prepares a secret meeting with Adela a couple of times. The first time did not really give anything because again, he had to leave before he can say anything important. Then the second time, someone shot him to death. It is almost comedic how much Quentin as a character in the story becomes that guy who critically about to say something important that will change everything but failed to do so at the last moment. It happens 4 or 5 times with his death being the last one. He did manage to give Adela a USB stick before his death, a USB stick that conveniently the ministry didn't see because the security camera was dead when Quentin gave Adela the USB stick. But even then, there's another plot twist that followed that also made whatever Quentin did as almost meaningless. The Brits didn't invent the time machine. The time machine is already there and killed a few miners that accidentally saw them. Along with the time machine is time travelers from the future. And the Adela that Adela has been reporting to is Adela herself from the future. Which, yeah, that's why I named the character Adela in my script even when I'm still at the start of the book. Then some events that feels really forced to happen that cause Adela and Graham to separate. Then the book ends with some kind of a sequel bait where Graham sent a letter that said he still loves Adela and invite her to come to where he is hiding. But I have backed out of the story long before that ending. I just don't care about these characters and the story. I mean, even the sex scene in this book is somehow boring. This honestly is the messiest sci-fi slash romance I read this year. I give this a 1. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.